Welcome to the Didi and Lital Show. Advice, thoughts, and stories from a married couple on cybersecurity, technology, and life in general. Now here are your hosts, Didi and Lital.
Hello and welcome to the Didi and Lital Show. It's another week. How are you doing, Didi?
I am doing awesome. Although
we've seen the trees starting to change. Autumn is here.
Autumn is here. You know what indications for me that autumn is here?
We already said football season is here.
No. Four hockey games one weekend.
Oh, yeah. Hockey season for the kids started.
Yes.
It's starting this week.
Yes. There's no
Ron is playing Newton.
Yes. There's no ice rinks for them to practice yet. There's just the game ones. So they're coming in hot.
They're coming in not so hot.
Yes. and Ron is so funny because I tell him, hey, Ron, do you want to sharpen your skates, measure your stuff? And I need to force them to basically measure their stuff, discover that they make excuses for why stuff still fits, even though they want.
No, it's fine. It's only up my butt.
Yes.
Yeah. Yeah.
The joys of boys.
Yeah, they're stupid.
They are so
like, what's the? Just say I grew up. I need new pens or like new gloves. What's the thing? Like Leah just say, hey, I need new clothes. Oh, like she goes online and she buys the clothes.
The difference between boys and girls, for those that it's just insane. It's like a human being versus
own your body. Your body changed. It grew up. You're 16. Like you're not the size.
Executive function, the ability to understand if I do X, something happens.
Yeah.
The lack of executive function
like
in the males of the gender is amazing.
No, I don't need a new whatever. I'm going to be fine. No, you're not fine. Like it's too small on you. Let's go buy something.
Yeah.
No, it's okay.
And it's not just...
What's the thing?
And it's not just them. It's like the whole dad population of the hockey team where we're comparing notes on the first practice that Omri had, that they're like they don't want to change the gear, so sometimes when they get the right size of shin pads it slows them down, and once they
reminds me when we started dating and like I looked at your wardrobe and you had all those shirts like from I don't know, kindergarten. Seriously.
No.
Like you threw away a lot of clothing when I just moved in, and
my rule of thumb is
that's your new one. Yeah. Like when you were like post studies, you were still in university. You had a lot of like weird stuff.
I'll take whatever.
So you have the same thing. Good. Let's talk about what we want to talk today.
Yes. So when we were talking about popular science and studies in general and how life works, one of the things that I found to be very, very interesting is there's a couple of guys in science that did amazing things.
They changed the world.
They changed the world.
Like literally... birth rates, survival rates of people, life expectancy is up thanks to them.
Yes, exactly. One of them is Jenner from the vaccines.
Yes.
And the other one is even less well known, a guy called Ignaz Semmelweis.
I mean, you have Pasteur.
Pasteur, everybody knows Pasteur. There's an institute named after him.
Right.
Everybody knows Koch because Germany has Morbus Koch is
so there are a few of those legends.
There's people that are legendary.
Yeah.
But they came on the backs of people that are not well known, that have worked before the discovery of bacteria, that worked before things, saved human lives. And most of the time, they were ridiculed. Jenner, it took him a very long time to prove his point. And he was ridiculed until the numbers were there. And Semmelweis was even worse. And why is Ignaz Semmelweis so important?
So most people don't know him. I
Yes.
didn't know him. So
Yes.
let's
So-
tell the audience about him.
First and foremost, he is a hero because he was a gynecologist. And my dad always repeated that because my dad was a gynecologist too. He's the hero of all gynecologists. And why is he so important? He's the guy that because of him, you wash hands. Because he discovered that, so I'll describe the scenario. In Vienna, the capital of the Austro-Hungarian Empire. And it's
When
important.
was he alive?
The 1800s.
Okay.
He discovered, so during that time, mortality rates for moms coming into hospitals
For delivery.
for delivery was insane. And they discovered that the mortality at the hospital was so bad that people preferred to stay at home and deliver and not come to the hospital. And there were two wards. The ward that had the doctors that allegedly were more skilled, more capable. And there was the midwives that were less capable and less skilled. And the midwives had a significantly better survival rate than the doctors. And it drove Semmelweis crazy. And he tried and experimented whatever methodology. Remember, nobody knew about bacteria at that point in time. There was no indication of bacteria. And he thought, is it the air? Is this the water? Is this that technique? Is this? Is it the population? He tried everything. And at one point in time, a friend of his performed an autopsy and cut his hand. And 3 days later, he developed the same symptoms of the same disease that inflicted most of the new moms that came to the hospital. He had high fever, it didn't react, and he died. He died from the same symptoms that the mothers died from.
Basically what we know now, bacterial infection.
Basically cutting open cadavers is bad for your health. Because people died for a reason, and it causes sepsis, especially when you deal with the intestines and things like that. It will cause sepsis. And what the people died from was sepsis. And he said, you know what? Let's do something simple. Change our clothes and wash our hands. Like for real. With soap and water. Not something complicated. He used a disinfectant with chlorine. But it's basically what exists in most soaps today. And that discovery, basically, once he instituted this and forced people to wash their hands, mortality rates decreased significantly. And he actually created something called the Semmelweis effect. Do you know what the Semmelweis effect is?
No idea.
It means that if you say something that people is counter to current belief, you'll be ridiculed, because Semmelweis, you'd expect that there'll be a statue of him somewhere. No, there wasn't. He was
Why?
Because he was Hungarian. He had a funny accent. He was short and bald and chubby, and people made fun of him. And he was ridiculed and mocked. And
For suggesting
People
doctors
should-
and nurses should wash their hands.
Exactly.
Okay.
Because they said that this is bullshit, and he even came to the conclusion that maybe we should separate the dissection rooms in medical schools from the maternity, from the health wards, something that today you wouldn't even think about of doing. But he was ridiculed because he was challenging the existing paradigm, because the doctors took pride of the fact that they had these bloody aprons, that they did science, that they researched. It was like a point of pride for them. And as I said, he was a funny little bald guy.
Doctors were butchers.
But doctors were butchers at that point in time.
Yeah.
And it brings into this whole thing called the Semmelweis effect, which is we do this all the time.
Did you say he was hospitalized in a mental institute?
He was.
Because he got crazy for that?
Because
for being
he-
ridiculed? Or like people just thought he was crazy?
People
saying
thought he was
those
crazy,
things?
and he was doing his best to make sure that people don't touch women with dirty hands.
Okay.
And because he was yelling at people, don't do this, you're killing people, he was basically hospitalized.
Okay. So
In the
the
mental
effect
ward.
is basically us taking something that is the right thing and ridiculing the person saying it?
No, the effect is that if you say something, even if it's completely right, but you're challenging existing paradigm, or worse, you're challenging existing paradigm and you don't look the right way, you don't have the right pedigree, you don't have the right accent. You remember that people are telling us today in our world culture, it doesn't matter what you say, it matters how you say it.
Yeah.
That's bullshit. If you're talking about science, what you say actually matters. The way you say it, you can be a complete asshole and say the right thing. You can be the nicest person and talk about complete bullshit. You shouldn't listen to the loudest voice or the guy with the highest pedigree. Sometimes you need to listen to the person that's right.
Well, we live in a world of feeling, of joy, and how we feel about a person and how nice it is.
Feeling is bullshit. As I said in my Watson joke in the previous episode, I view the facts and I care about the facts. Sometimes somebody will say the right thing and piss me off, but if he's saying the right thing, I'll be pissed off and say that he's right. Because
the thing is that it's so hard for people to actually listen. They turn off the listening ears, and the minute, they don't like the delivery, they disagree with the beliefs of the person doesn't fit, whatever. It's like they want to, we see it now all the time. You want to just take it from people like you. You want to hear the news from your side of the aisle. You want to learn from things that conform with what you think. You're not questioning your opinion, and for sure you don't want to feel uncomfortable listening to people that seems weird, different. You will say that.
I'll start by looking at ex-President Trump, and I'm not exposing my politics or saying one thing or another. I'm just saying that look at how many times when people criticize Trump or criticize Kamala, I'll give that an example as well. They'll make fun of the fact that he has the fake tan or the haircut, or that he dances like he looks like he jerks off two people at the same time. There's a whole
He's
bunch
a funny person, I have to say.
There's a lot more ridicule of the delivery and the package than the content. And
people don't even listen. Like they wouldn't listen.
Don't listen to the content. Kamala, with the fact that she now adopted these accents that she speaks in a country hick accent in one
and an
place,
hour after she changes it to Oxford English.
Exactly. For another place, maybe she's doing the right thing, maybe she's not doing the right thing, but people are focusing on the delivery and the laugh and the haircut and are you this and are you that versus the what did she say?
And what did she do? Or
and what did she do?
He do? Like the actual...
What did either of them do? And this is, as the race comes closer, we keep looking at the package of the delivery versus the facts.
I have to say, just on that topic, and maybe we'll just move from politics, not to lose audience, even though I don't mind. I realized I have this, and I was big on the Trump derangement syndrome. I think everybody has some DTS in what shape or form. And knowing how critical the upcoming election is, I moved to only listening to audio podcasts with, and I would listen to any of them. I already listened to probably 6 or 7 hours of Trump speaking with Lex Freeman, with the Olin podcast, with a few others, his X Space, which was hard to listen to, but it was over an hour and a half of like talking, but really interesting, because when you don't look and when you just listen, you can focus on the story and listen to those things. I wish there was more of Kamala doing those things because she does more scripted stuff. But I also I listen to all the speeches, the main speeches from the DNC, what she said, what Tim Walz said, what others said. They're not a ton, they're not very long. But I don't watch to at least take this element of like the visual stuff, and it gives you more information. It's helpful.
So I'll tell you something else. You know what's better to do? And that's the thing that everybody forgot that they're capable of doing because they're stupid. There's this thing called reading, and there's reading in long form. If your world is decreased to reading 144 characters, you're an idiot. If you want, remember in our previous...
So what long form reading do you have? What are you reading politically that's relevant?
So in the olden days, people published the text of speeches. You know,
you can still get the script,
yeah,
but it's like you cannot read it because it's like so hard to read. But
exactly.
Well, I guess in the old days, candidates would actually post the agenda, and you will have the policies written.
Exactly.
I don't know if that's still the case.
That's the thing that I miss. I'm going to sound like Felger. That he said that there's this thing called the paper, and he used to read it. There was this thing called the paper, and I used to read it. And I think that this is the thing that our very, very short attention spans are sticking towards.
Yeah, because then they only have like the one selling line, short thing about, the border, about, taxing, 28% tax, property tax, I don't know, whatever.
And that's the point.
Unrealized
and I want to move off of politics.
Yeah, let's move off politics.
But in a lot of things, people want to do give me the short version. Now, summarization is important, but I like reading long form. So a lot of times when somebody gives me an opinion in a meeting, I ask them, can you write me a summary? Can you write me 3 paragraphs on this? I want to read it. I want to see the informed opinion outside of the pitch. And this is something that we need to come back to as decision makers in our businesses of, can you give me a written opinion? Can you give me a summary? Can you write down what you're actually saying? First, it forces people, especially the populists, a lot of times people have these half-assed ideas that sound nice in a meeting because they like the sound of their voice. And you'll gravitate to that because they're charming, they're charismatic. When you ask to give me the half page, you'll see that the fluff goes away, and a lot of times the charm of the person goes away. You're left with just written words, and you're able to get towards objectivity. The closer you can get to the written word for objectivity, the better it is for you to be informed. At least that's my view. At least on the important things. There are things that if I want to publicize a feature, I'll actually want to do a video because I don't want people to dive down into the details. I want them to stick to the coolness and the shine, not look at everything that is broken.
That makes me think, for me, it's really what you're saying is really related to a lot of those discussions around biases in the workforce and stuff. And, I think all those bias training, anti-bias training are a little bit of a bullshit because they go into the surface of, you have biases toward a certain population and stuff, which is really shallow and might be true, might not be true, but I don't think it's the real problem in the workforce. I do think that the bigger bias that we have is around the people that are more voiceful, are more kind of maybe extroverts, can have the loudest voice, can, take the most percentage of the speaking in the room, have that tendency maybe to be more social and connect and be more political. So if anything, specifically in the workforce, the main bias that you have is, and I will say it as a female and stuff, it's not about gender. It could be, I'm not saying completely not, but the real bias that you will see people are really rewarded for is being better politician, better speakers, the ones that fill up the room and people spot them. The main bias is against the introvert, quiet, sitting, thinking, and if anything, we should have systems to get the voice of the introvert, get the voice of the person that is less political, and reward them for the work they're doing and reward them for ideas and get the ideas out. So maybe your point about getting things in paper, not just having meetings, have just, people submit thoughts. Do maybe more, instead of all those brainstorming sessions in which one person just go and ideate, think about other ways to submit ideas that are good, that are not attached to a bigger speaker in the room, but rather, people file the ideas without attaching the name to it.
So my trick,
Yeah.
and actually it's not my trick, it's Dennis's trick, and I adopted it. It's called Proposal 1. I tell everybody that when I talk about something, we're going to call it Proposal 1. I don't want to hear it's Didi's ideas. No, it's Proposal 1.
Okay.
I want to detach the matter from the person. Because when you detach the matter from the person, now it becomes less emotional. I want to get to the point where we detach the emotion from the decision. Second, I disagree with you on the quiet, not quiet. I think the people that everybody wants to have a bias against is the people that want to rock the boat. Everybody wants to be paid. Everybody wants to keep their head down. Everybody wants to keep if you think of physics, remember the thing that always increases in the system?
Entropy.
Exactly. People, Balagan. Actually,
in Hebrew.
People would like
Chaos.
as much as possible to
Lower the entropy.
Don't change. Don't
have less of chaos.
Let's have less chaos.
Change.
Less change, less chaos. Why do we do this? Is because this is what we did in the past.
It works.
It
keep
works.
on going.
Keep on going. The desire for change kind of disrupts people. And if you want to get a good example, tell Ron that he needs to get to a place 15 minutes different than what he planned to do. He'll go completely ballistic because he had a plan. And most people are better, express themselves better than a 16-year-old full of hormones. But most people are wrong. Most people, when you tell them there's a change in the plan, when you tell them that their main idea is wrong, and if you tell them, and if this comes from somebody with a weird accent, if it comes with somebody that's not as articulate as they are, if it comes from somebody that they view as inferior or disruptive or outside the clique or not in the group, the immediate knee-jerk reaction would be no. And we are all guilty of this. I'm guilty of this. Everybody that I know is guilty of this. So you need to be able to immediately detach the idea from the person. Because this way, you're able to stop introducing the biases. And it allows people to actually absorb the idea as their own. Sometimes at a meeting, I present something and there's a chaos around it. Sometimes it is, sometimes it's not. And then 3 weeks later, somebody else comes up with the same idea and it comes through. And somebody tells me, don't you want to argue that this is your idea. I said, I don't care. I want us to do this. If somebody else gets credit, who cares? We're doing the right thing. The attribution, and we spend a lot of time on the periphery of things versus on the content. And the more we spend on the content and outside of the periphery, the more we'll get to where we need to go. Mm-hmm. And that's kind of my key message. And that's true for almost everything we'll do. Because eventually, even though we do not erect statues in Semmelweis' name, mortality rates of infants is down. And what do you think he preferred? At least most people that I care about care less about the standing on the mountaintop and the glory. Because almost every time...
So how did it become a thing? Like who changed it if he wasn't successful? Like who followed it?
He had other Hungarian doctors in that area that went to the periphery, and they implemented this in the periphery, not in Vienna.
So slowly the guys in Vienna started seeing that those rural doctors having better results.
Better results.
And then they started listening to them. I'm sure there was somebody that went there.
I think once the mechanism was made clear through Pasteur and Koch,
then it became clear that you need to wash your hands.
Exactly.
So before the mechanism and the reason for it probably didn't become mainstream.
Exactly.
Interesting.
So this is an important lesson for us to kind of think of. Where do we go with this? And if we say to somebody, it's not what you said, it's how you said it, think about it. And it's also important to say, when you say something in a certain way, this is what happens to me. I was dealing with an interesting challenge that was very similar. That there's this designer that speaks in all these metaphors, and I keep telling her, you do understand that you're talking to non-native English speakers that did not grow up in the US. All the stuff that you're giving examples for are not in people's vocabulary. Can you use our own business vocabulary rather than inventing your own vocabulary, or use pop culture metaphors where everybody here deals with identity? Can we speak about identity? And when she was starting to give...
You're talking about cybersecurity identity, not
cybersecurity
not
identity.
the cultural identities.
Cybersecurity identity. We're all identity experts. Let's focus on the topic. Let's not... And I know that I'm biased towards the presentation, but I'm trying to get her to understand that the way that she presents makes us not understand what she says.
So you're saying it will be helpful for the receiver to be less biased and be aware that the way somebody presents is impacting the way we see the content itself. But at the same time, if you're trying to deliver content, you should be aware of your delivery and try to adjust it so that people actually get the content and not focus on your look, the way you speak, the metaphors you're using, or whatever method of delivery that doesn't suit your audience.
You need to think of, are you speaking with the right audience?
Because the effect exists.
Exactly.
Like if you come wearing inappropriate clothing, people will think about you, some stuff. Like you cannot fight this. Yeah. So just go with the flow. I mean,
it's not just go with the flow. It's try as much as you can to see who's your audience, how did they perceive things, and I try to make an effort to understand somebody communicating and try to get to short form and long form of presentation that have closest as possible to what you're trying to say, to basically remove as much of the friction and the bias, because no matter what we do as the fanfare, we think it helps. Most of the time, it actually is a problem.
Remember the effect.
Exactly. Remember the effect. Remember that it's there. Watch yourself for when you're impacted by it. watch others when they're impacted by it and tell them that they're impacted by it, and explain to people when they cause people to have that friction. Say, can you change? I know that I'm trying to say, listen, not focus on the facts and not the delivery. But you also need to tell somebody that delivers something, can you deliver just the facts versus think of how your delivery is done. How much is fanfare versus how much is fact?
Yeah. Cool.
Cool. Awesome. Any thoughts?
No, I'm thankful for, hand washing and saving the world with a little bit of water and soap.
Exactly.
With that, I think we can leave our audience to tell us how they deal with it in the day-to-day. Thank you for listening. The Didi and Lital Show is a weekly podcast. Please rate and review us wherever you get your podcast. We will see you next week.
See you next week.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
Thank you.